A dog, motionless in the mud for days. People whispered, "Is it alive?" Then a tiny movement. What they discovered next left an entire town in shock. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a tale that will change how you see loyalty forever. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means everything to us, and it's the only way for the stories of these beautiful animals, who often suffer in silence, to reach more people. It helps us keep our work going. Please subscribe now. We know that God will reward you twice for helping these animals have their voices heard. Hung heavy with the scent of rain and decay. On the outskirts of Millbrook, a small town where everyone knew each other's business, where the pavement gives way to muddy fields, sat a dog. Not just any dog, a massive mud-caked creature. It's formatted and unrecognizable. For days, it hadn't moved, hadn't eaten, hadn't even lifted its head. Locals drove by, their curiosity piqued, but their fear holding them back. The dog's eyes, barely visible through the caked mud, held a glimmer of something. Was it pain, desperation, or something else entirely? As the sun rose and set, casting long shadows across the field, the dog remained, steadfast, unmovable, a living statue with a secret yet to be revealed. The first to notice was old Mr. Jenkins, on his way to open the hardware store. His truck sputtered to a stop at the site. "What in tarnation?" he muttered, squinting through the early morning mist. But as quickly as he'd stopped, he drove on, shaking his head. Just some old junkyard dog, he convinced himself. But it wasn't just some old junkyard dog. And as the days wore on, more and more people began to take notice. Sally, the mail carrier, saw it next. Her usual route took her past the field every day at 2 p.m. sharp. On Monday, she barely glanced at the muddy lump. By Wednesday, she was slowing down, peering out her window with a frown. On Friday, she pulled over. "Hey there, pup," she called softly, taking a tentative step towards the field. "You okay?" The dog's ears twitched ever so slightly, but it didn't move. Sally's heart raced. Was it hurt? Trapped? She took another step forward, the mud squelching beneath her feet. That's when it happened. The dog's eyes, previously half closed, snapped open. They locked onto Sally with an intensity that made her gasp. There was no aggression there, no fear, just purpose, unwavering, unshakable purpose. Sally stumbled back, her breath catching in her throat. She fumbled for her phone, dialing the local vet with trembling fingers. "Dr. Martinez, there's a dog out here in Crowley's field. I think you need to see this." Word spread through Millbrook like wildfire. "Have you seen the mud dog?" Children whispered on playgrounds. In the local diner, heated debates broke out over steaming cups of coffee. "It's hurt," claimed Mrs. Johnson, the retired nurse, her voice quavering with concern. "We should call animal control. Get that poor thing some help." "No," argued Tom, the local handyman, his weathered face creased with thought. "I've seen hurt dogs. This is different. It's like it's waiting for something." Days turned into a week. Rain fell, soaking the town and turning Crowley's field into a veritable swamp. But the dog didn't flinch. The mud around it grew deeper, threatening to swallow it whole. Yet still, it remained. Brave souls ventured closer, armed with food and water. "Here, boy," they called softly, inching forward with outstretched hands. But as they approached, the dog's eyes would lock onto them, filled with such intensity that they'd stumble back, hearts racing. "It's guarding something," a young girl named Lily insisted to her skeptical parents over dinner. "Can't you see? It's protecting a secret." Her parents exchanged worried glances. Lily had always been imaginative, but this was different. There was a fire in her eyes, a certainty that couldn't be shaken. The mystery deepened. Why wouldn't the dog move? What could be so important that it would risk its own life day after day, night after night? Theories ran wild. Some said it was a military dog, left behind on some secret mission. Others whispered about ghosts, claiming the dog was guarding the spirit of its deceased owner. A few even suggested alien involvement, their eyes darting nervously to the sky as they spoke. But as the second week dawned, the town of Millbrook was divided. Some, like Mrs. Johnson, wanted to force the dog to move, fearing for its health. "It'll die out there," she cried at a hastily assembled town meeting. "We can't just stand by and watch." Others, sensing something profound in the dog's dedication, urged patience. "There's more to this," Tom insisted, his voice gruff with emotion. "That dog, it's got a purpose. We need to trust it." The debate raged on, growing more heated with each passing day. And all the while, the dog sat, waiting, watching, guarding its secret with unwavering determination. If this story has captured your heart, don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. As tensions in Millbrook reached a boiling point, animal control finally arrived. Their van pulled up to Crowley's field on a Wednesday morning, nets at the ready. A small crowd had gathered, watching with bated breath as two officers approached the dog. "Careful now," Mrs. Johnson called out, wringing her hands. "It might be scared." But as the officers drew near, something extraordinary happened. The dog, barely more than a lump in the mud after 2 weeks of immobility, let out a low, rumbling growl. The sound vibrated through the earth, sending shivers down everyone's spine. The officers froze. The crowd gasped. And in that moment, something shifted in the air. "Back off!" shouted Tom, surprising even himself as he stepped forward. "Can't you see? This isn't just some stray. This dog, it's got a purpose." The animal control officers exchanged glances, then slowly retreated to their van. As they drove away, the town let out a collective breath they didn't realize they'd been holding. From that moment on, Millbrook rallied around their mysterious mud dog. Neighbors began to take shifts, watching over from a distance. They'd bring blankets when the nights turned cold, set up makeshift shelters to shield it from the rain. As the sun set and the crickets began to sing, they'd whisper theories to each other, their voices carrying on the evening breeze. "I heard it was a military dog," one would say, eyes wide with wonder, left behind on a secret mission to guard something of national importance. No, another would counter, shaking their head. "It's waiting for its owner. They must be coming back." That kind of loyalty. It's once in a lifetime. But deep down, they all knew this was something bigger, something that would change them all. Days blurred into nights, and still, the dog remained. Its fur, once matted with mud, began to dry in patches, revealing hints of golden fur beneath. Its eyes, though alert, grew heavy with exhaustion. Yet still, it didn't move. The town held its breath, waiting for something, anything. And then on the morning of the 15th day, as dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, it happened. Lily, the young girl who had been so certain of the dog's purpose, couldn't take it anymore. Ignoring her parents' protests, she grabbed a shovel from the garage and marched toward Crowley's field. Her pajamas still on, her hair a wild tangle around her determined face. The town, sensing something monumental was about to occur, began to gather. They formed a loose circle around the field, hearts pounding in unison as Lily approached the dog. The dog's eyes tracked Lily's approach, but for the first time in 2 weeks, it didn't growl, didn't bare its teeth. It just waited. With trembling hands, Lily began to dig beside the dog. The mud was thick, unyielding, but she persisted, her small arms straining with each scoop. Sweat beaded on her brow, mingling with tears of determination. "Lily, be careful," her mother called out, her voice choked with fear and something else, hope, and then a sound, faint at first, then growing stronger, a whimper, not from the dog but from beneath it. Lily's eyes widened. She dug faster, her movements frantic. The crowd pressed closer, breaths held, hearts racing. The dog, for the first time in 2 weeks, shifted slightly, and as it moved, the truth was revealed. There, in a small pocket of air beneath the dog's massive body, lay a tiny kitten, eyes barely open, for slick with mud, but alive, protected from the rain, the cold, and the threat of predators by this selfless guardian. The town collectively gasped. Tears flowed freely as the realization hit them. This dog, this hero, had sacrificed everything to save a life that wasn't even its own. As Lily gently lifted the kitten, cradling it close, the dog finally stood. Its legs shook with the effort, muscles weak from disuse. But its eyes were filled with a love so pure, so unconditional, that it took everyone's breath away. The story of the mud dog and the kitten it saved spread far beyond Millbrook's borders. News crews descended, eager to capture the tale of unexpected friendship and unbelievable sacrifice. Both animals were rushed to Dr. Martinez's clinic, where the true extent of the dog's dedication became clear. It had gone without food or water for nearly 2 weeks, its massive body serving as both shelter and life support for the tiny kitten. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Martinez said, shaking her head in wonder as she examined the pair. "By all rights, neither of them should have survived. It's a miracle," as they recovered. Offers to adopt the unlikely pair poured in from around the world. Celebrities tweeted about them. Talk shows clamored for interviews, and animal welfare organizations held them up as shining examples of the depth of animal emotions. But in the end, it was Lily's family who opened their home and their hearts. "They belong here," Lily's father said, his voice gruff with emotion as he signed the adoption papers. "With the people who never gave up on them." Watching the dog, now clean and healthy, its golden fur gleaming in the sunlight, gently nuzzling the kitten in their living room, Lily's mother shook her head in amazement. "I've never seen anything like it," she murmured. "It's like they're meant to be together." The kitten, once so fragile, grew stronger every day. It would climb onto the dog's back, nestling into its fur as if it was the safest place in the world. And perhaps for this little orphan, Millbrook was forever changed by the events in Crowley's Field. People looked at each other differently, with more compassion and understanding. They'd witnessed a love that transcended species, a dedication that defied explanation. The mud that once coated the dog became a symbol of perseverance. Local artists created sculptures, paintings, even a mural on the side of the town hall depicting the dog standing guard over its precious charge. Schools invited Lily and her new pets for special assemblies, teaching children about empathy, loyalty, and the importance of looking beyond appearances. The local animal shelter saw a surge in adoptions, with families inspired to open their homes to animals in need. And as for the dog and kitten, they became local celebrities, living symbols of the extraordinary bonds that can form in the most unexpected places. Lily named the dog Guardian and the kitten Miracle. Fitting names, the town agreed, for two creatures who had reminded them all of the power of love and sacrifice. Guardian, though no longer stuck in the mud, maintained its protective nature. It would sleep curled around Miracle, one eye always open, always watchful. And Miracle, in turn, showered Guardian with affection, purring loudly and kneading its paws against the dog's soft fur. Their story inspired countless acts of kindness throughout Millbrook and beyond. People began to look out for each other more, to offer help without being asked. The town's sense of community, always strong, grew even stronger. Mrs. Johnson, once so insistent on moving Guardian, became the animal's biggest champion. She organized a fundraiser to cover their medical bills and set up a scholarship in their name for students pursuing veterinary medicine. Tom, the handyman who had urged patience, found himself in demand for interviews. Sometimes he'd say, his eyes misting over, "You've got to trust that there's more to a story than what you can see." Guardian taught us that. Dr. Martinez used the case in her lectures at the local community college, discussing the physiological impacts of extreme stress and the remarkable resilience of animals. Guardian's body was shutting down, she'd explain, but its spirit never wavered. As months passed, Guardian and Miracle's fame began to fade, but their impact on Millbrook remained. The town had been touched by something extraordinary, something that defied easy explanation. People would still stop by Lily's house, hoping for a glimpse of the unlikely pair. They'd leave with smiles on their faces, hearts a little lighter, spirits a little more hopeful. And Lily? Lily grew too. The shy, imaginative girl who had been so certain of Guardian's purpose blossomed into a confident young woman. She volunteered at the animal shelter, sharing Guardian and Miracle's story with every potential adopter. Sometimes, she'd say, her eyes shining, "Love comes in the most unexpected packages. You just have to be willing to look beyond the surface." If this story has touched your heart, remember to like and share. There are countless tales of animal heroism waiting to be told, and together, we can ensure these incredible stories are never forgotten. Years passed, and Guardian grew old. Its muzzle turned white, its steps slowed. But its devotion to Miracle never wavered. And Miracle, now a sleek adult cat, remained by Guardian's side, returning the love and protection it had received as a kitten. On warm days, they'd lay in the sun in Lily's backyard, Guardian's tail thumping weakly against the grass as Miracle purred contentedly. The town would sometimes gather, sitting quietly on the other side of the fence, watching the duo with a sense of reverence. When Guardian finally passed, peacefully in its sleep with Miracle curled up beside it, the town mourned. Flags flew at half-mast. The local paper ran a full-page tribute. And in Crowley's field, where it all began, a statue was erected, cast in bronze. It depicted Guardian standing tall, head held high, with a tiny kitten nestled safely between its paws. The plaque below read, "In memory of Guardian and Miracle, they taught us that love knows no boundaries, that loyalty can move mountains, and that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes are found in the most ordinary places. May we all strive to see the world through their eyes." Miracle lived out the rest of its days with Lily, a constant reminder of the incredible bond it had shared with Guardian. And though Guardian was gone, its legacy lived on. In the years that followed, Millbrook became known as a haven for animals in need. The shelter, once struggling, now had a waiting list of families eager to adopt. The town's veterinary clinic expanded, offering free care to strays and low-income families. But perhaps the most profound change was in the hearts of Millbrook's residents. They had witnessed something miraculous, something that challenged their perceptions of what animals were capable of feeling and doing. They learned to look deeper, to see beyond the surface, to recognize that sometimes the muddiest, most bedraggled exterior can hide the purest heart, that loyalty and love can transcend species, language, and understanding. Guardian and Miracle's story became a touchstone, a reminder of the best parts of ourselves. When faced with challenges, people would ask, what would Guardian do? The answer was always the same: persevere, protect, love unconditionally. As new generations grew up in Millbrook, the story was passed down. It became part of the town's lore, a tale told around campfires and at bedtimes. But unlike most legends, this one had the weight of truth behind it. The muddy field where Guardian had stood its ground became a park. Families would picnic there. Children would play, and every so often, someone would pause by the statue, remembering. Lily, now grown with children of her own, would bring them to the park. She'd sit them down in the soft grass and tell them the story of Guardian and Miracle, of unwavering loyalty, of love that defied explanation, of the extraordinary capacity for compassion that exists in all living beings. Remember, she'd say, her eyes distant with memory, that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism come in the quietest moments. Guardian didn't set out to be a hero. It simply saw a need and filled it, without hesitation, without thought of reward. As twilight fell and the fireflies began to dance in the warm summer air, Lily would gather her children close. In a world that often feels divided, she'd whisper, Guardian and Miracle remind us of the power of compassion, the strength of loyalty, and the miracles that can happen when we choose love over fear. And somewhere, in the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft chirping of crickets, in the very earth of Millbrook itself, the spirit of Guardian lived on, a testament to the enduring power of love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds that can form between the most unlikely of friends. As the years rolled on, Millbrook's reputation as an animal-friendly town grew. People would travel from far and wide to visit the statue in Crowley's Field, now known as Guardian Park. They'd stand before the bronze figures, heads bowed in quiet reflection, before tying colorful ribbons to the fence surrounding the monument. Each ribbon represented a promise: to be kinder, to look deeper, to love more fiercely. The local school curriculum now included lessons on animal welfare and empathy, with Guardian and Miracle's story at its heart. Children would sit wide-eyed as their teachers recounted the tale, then eagerly participate in projects designed to help local animals in need. Even the town's economy felt the impact. Pet-friendly businesses sprouted up, from cafes where dogs were welcome to specialized bakeries creating gourmet treats for cats and dogs alike. The annual Guardian and Miracle Festival became a major draw, bringing in visitors from across the country to celebrate the spirit of interspecies friendship. But perhaps the most profound change was in the way people treated each other. The compassion that had been awakened by Guardian's sacrifice seemed to ripple outward, touching every aspect of life in Millbrook. Neighbors looked out for one another with a new sense of purpose. Strangers were greeted with warm smiles and open hearts. "It's like Guardian left us a piece of its spirit," old Tom would say, his eyes misty with emotion. A reminder that we're all capable of extraordinary love, if we just open ourselves to it. As the world outside Millbrook grew more chaotic, the town stood as a beacon of hope, a living example of what could happen when a community chose to embrace the lessons of loyalty, sacrifice, and unconditional love. Lily, now a respected veterinarian, often found herself sharing Guardian and Miracle's story with clients struggling with difficult decisions about their pet's care. "I remember the look in Guardian's eyes," she'd say softly, "when we finally understood what it had been doing all those weeks in the mud. There was no regret there, no resentment for the hardship it had endured. Just love. Pure, selfless love. That's the gift animals give us every day, if we're willing to see it." Her words would often bring tears to her clients' eyes, helping them find the strength to make tough choices with compassion and grace. The kitten Miracle had grown into a serene elder cat, spending its days basking in the sun on Lily's porch. Children would stop by on their way home from school, offering gentle pets and whispering their secrets into Miracle's soft fur. There was something in the cat's steady gaze that seemed to understand, to offer comfort without words. As Miracle's own time grew short, the town once again held its breath. The cat that had once been saved by an extraordinary act of love was now surrounded by an entire community ready to return that love tenfold. On a warm autumn evening, with the leaves of Guardian Park turning gold and crimson, Miracle peacefully slipped away. The town came together once more, this time to celebrate a life well lived and a legacy that would endure. A small plaque was added to Guardian's statue, reading simply, "Miracle, proof that even the smallest light can banish the darkness." As the sun set on that day, casting long shadows across Guardian Park, a strange hush fell over Millbrook. The usual evening sounds, barking dogs, laughing children, the hum of traffic, all seemed to fade away. In that moment of silence, many swore they could hear the faint echo of a dog's steadfast heartbeat and a kitten's contented purr. The story of Guardian and Miracle had come full circle, but its impact, the ripples of compassion and kindness it had sent out into the world, would continue on, in Millbrook, in the hearts of all who heard their tale, and in the countless acts of love and sacrifice inspired by a dog who stood guard in the mud and the tiny kitten it saved. As night fell and stars began to twinkle overhead, Lily stood in Guardian Park, her hand resting on the cool bronze of the statue. She closed her eyes, remembering the feel of mud under her feet, the weight of a tiny kitten in her arms, the unwavering gaze of a dog who had changed everything. "Thank you," she whispered, her words carried away on the gentle breeze, for teaching us all how to love a little harder, care a little deeper, and see the extraordinary in the ordinary. And somewhere, beyond the veil that separates this world from the next, a golden dog wagged its tail, a tiny kitten curled up between its paws. Their work was done, their legacy secure. They had shown the world that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't written in grand gestures or spoken in flowery words. Sometimes they're written in mud and sacrifice, in quiet dedication and unwavering loyalty. As you reflect on Guardian and Miracle's incredible journey, remember that their spirit lives on in every act of kindness, every moment of empathy, every time we choose love over indifference. Their story reminds us that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and that the capacity for extraordinary love exists within us all. So the next time you see an animal in need or a person struggling, or a situation that seems hopeless, think of Guardian standing steadfast in the mud. Think of Miracle, tiny but resilient, and ask yourself, what would they do? The answer, always, is to love, fiercely, unconditionally, and without hesitation. In a world that can sometimes feel cold and uncaring, be someone's guardian, be someone's miracle, for in doing so, you keep their spirit alive, and you become part of a story that will be told for generations to come. A story of hope, of courage, and of a love that knows no bounds.